Okay, this is 4.5. This is part 2. We are looking at graphing tangent and cotangent. Okay, we're going to do this by looking at the unit circle. All right, so when we graphed sine and cosine, right? So let's just look at sine. So we said for that standard graph, right, sine of 0 is 0. And then we went to pi over 2. The sine of pi over 2 is 1. And then sine of pi is 0. And then the sine of 3 pi over 2 is -1. And then we got back to 2 pi. Right, so it took us a full 2 pi radians to complete an entire period of the sine function. Same thing with cosine, right? Cosine of 0 is 1, cosine of pi over 2 is 0, cosine of pi is -1, cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0, and then at 2 pi, right, we're back where we started. So it took us a full 2 pi radians to complete a period of that graph. All right, so when we are graphing tangent, remember that tangent, okay, is sine over cosine, right? Well, tangent, okay, tangent is sine over cosine. Sine is our y coordinate, cosine is our x coordinate, so it's y over x. All right, so when we look at this unit circle, the tangent of 0, right, is 0 over 1. Okay, so the tangent of 0, and I'm going to do radians, not degrees. Okay, the tangent of 0 radians is 0. Okay, the tangent of, and let's go, okay, I'm going to look at all of these right here. I'm going to go a little bit smaller intervals. So sine and cosine, we jumped from 0 to pi over 2 to pi to 3 pi over 2 to 2 pi. Okay, so here I'm actually going to go to 0. I don't want to mess with this because I don't want to try to divide 1/2 by 3, square root of 3 over 2. However, pi over 4, I'm dividing square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. Right? Anytime I divide something by itself, that's just 1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and consider that a point on my graph. Okay, so the tangent of pi over 4 is 1 square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. Okay, I don't want to try here and divide square root of 3 over 2 by 1/2. It's just complicated, so I'm going to skip that. Okay, pi over 2, the tangent of pi over 2 is 1 divided by 0. Okay, so anything divided by 0 is undefined. Okay, same thing here. I don't want to divide these. Okay, but negative square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2, right? That's just going to be -1. So I'm going to go ahead and include 3 pi over 4 here. So I have tangent of 3 pi over 4. Okay, that's -1. And then tangent of pi, right, is 0 over -1. Is 0 over -1, which is 0. Okay. If I keep going, right, tangent of 5 pi over 4 is +1. Tangent of 3 pi over 2 is 0. Just kidding, it's not 0, I think it's undefined. Yeah, it's -1 divided by 0, so it's undefined. Okay, the tangent of 7 pi over 4 is -1. and the tangent of 2 pi is 0. All right, so we start here and we see 0, 1, undefined, -1. 0, 1, undefined, -1. Okay, so the difference here with tangent, okay, instead of it taking us a full circle, right, a full 2 pi radians for our cycle to start repeating, it only takes us half. Okay, so the period of tangent, instead of being 2 pi, is pi. Okay, cotangent is the reciprocal function of tangent, so it has the same period. Okay, so that is the first difference between tangent and cotangent and the other 4 functions that we have been graphing. All right, so let's look at this function then. What does it look like? I'm going to go ahead and graph 2 periods. Okay, 1 period is pi, okay, which means I can get 2 periods in 2 pi. I'm still going to break this up into quarters. Okay, this is going to be pi over 4. This is going to be pi over 2. This is going to be 3 pi over 4. This is pi. This is going to be 5 pi over 4. This is going to be 3 pi over 2. And this is going to be 7 pi over 4. Okay. So when I graph tangent, right, so I'm going to go back to what I had right here. So the tangent of 0 is 0. Okay, so there's that point right there. The tangent at pi over 4 is positive 1. Okay, the tangent at pi over 2 is undefined. That means I've got an asymptote here. Right, so that graph looks like that. Okay, the tangent of 3 pi over 4 is -1. And the tangent of pi is 0. So there's 1 pi of that, or 1 period of that graph. Okay, the tangent at 5 pi over 4 is +1. The tangent of 3 pi over 2 is undefined. Okay, the tangent at 7 pi over 4 is -1, and the tangent at 2 pi is 0. Okay, so that is what the graph of tangent looks like. Okay, that's what the graph of tangent looks like. All right, cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, right? So if the tangent at 0 equals 0, right? That means the cotangent of 0 is undefined, right? We're just going to take the reciprocals of the points we just looked at. Okay, so let's look at what this graph looks like by taking reciprocals. Okay, the period is the same. This is pi over 4. This is 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. This is 3 pi over 4. This is 4 pi over 4, which simplifies to pi. This is 5 pi over 4. This is 6 pi over 4, which simplifies to 3 pi over 2. This is 7 pi over 4, and this is 8 pi over 4, which simplifies to 2 pi. Okay, so that might make it a little bit easier when you're writing out those critical points. All right, so let's look at tangent. Okay, if the tangent of 0 is 0, the reciprocal of 0 is undefined. Okay, so that means I've got an asymptote here. Okay, the tangent at pi over 4 is 1. The reciprocal of 1 is 1. Okay, so that doesn't change. The tangent of pi over 2 is undefined. Okay, and technically it's undefined because it's 1 over 0. So the reciprocal then, the cotangent, would be 0 over 1, which is 0. Okay, so at pi over 2, the cotangent is 0. Okay, at 3 pi over 4, tangent is -1. The reciprocal of -1 is -1. Okay, at pi, the tangent of pi is 0. The reciprocal of 0 is undefined. Okay, so there is one period of that function. Okay, so notice tangent and cotangent have the same shape. They're just going in opposite directions. They're flipped over the x-axis. Okay. 5 pi over 4 is 1. The reciprocal of 1 is 1. Okay, this is going to repeat. 3 pi over 2 is undefined. The reciprocal of undefined is 0. 7 pi over 4 is -1. The reciprocal of -1 is -1. And 2 pi is 0. The reciprocal of 0 is undefined. Okay, so these are these parent functions for tangent and cotangent, and this is what we're going to base all of our other graphs off of. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to pick up some examples in the next video.